Hi, I'm Wes Allen with DM Tales, and have you ever wanted to play an RPG filled with 1950s era ridiculousness and flying saucer paranoia? If so, I've got a game for you. This is my look at Redacted. Let's roll it. If you enjoyed this content, please consider doing the whole like, comment, subscribe, and hype routine. It really helps out the channel. And if you'd like to become a direct supporter of DM Tales, you can become a channel member here or join my Patreon where you'll get ad-free videos as well as drops from my various adventure notebooks. Right now, I've even got a full handwritten Shadow Dark adventure up for my patrons of Caffeination, so they can go and attempt to translate it from my left-handed scratch. The link to join the Patreon is right over there. Let's get back to the review. Redacted takes place in the MAJESTIC Universe, where the 1947 Roswell crash really happened, and extraterrestrial contact was made as a result of the U.S. reverse engineering saucer technology. A species known as the Reticulans, the little gray men, were concerned for the well-being of humanity if saucer technology was used by one power over another, and to prevent this, they shared the technology with the USSR and established what it was known as the Trilateral Treaty. This treaty established that saucer technology could not be used against any human nation or in any earthbound conflict. Other nations also managed to obtain saucer technology somehow, and they ended up joining the Trilateral Treaty as well, expanding its scope. Saucer-enabled nations used the tech to explore beyond the confines of the Earth for the first time, though this knowledge was kept hidden from the vast majority of humanity, and even most of the authorities and the governments which signed on to the treaty. Now, for most of the public, the 20th century unfolded much as it did on our world. There was a space race, the Cold War happened, social norms were challenged and shifted. All of this happened even though the major powers of the world were already exploring the solar system and even having wars out among the stars. The game assumes the PCs are part of MAJESTIC, or the Soviet Union's 10th Directorate, which is tasked to defend the Earth from extraterrestrial threats, while keeping their existence secret from the world at large. Chapter 2 goes over the world lore in 16 pages, and the entire premise, thought up by the game's co-creator, Aaron Palya, feels like the X-Files meets 1950s science fiction, and I am here for it. Redacted characters have a simple design, but are flexible enough that each will feel distinct. Each character has a motivation, which players may come up with on their own, or they may use an excellent 2d12 table on page 30 to make a random choice. This motivation becomes the driving force for a character's personality during their missions. Characters also have a conspiracy to which they hold, which can be anything which fits the game world. And in the Redacted session I played, my character was an alien who blamed Earth rocks for crashing his spaceship, but he also believed that Earth rocks were really, really tasty. And if a player can make a case that their conspiracy fits a current test, once per game they may re-roll any d12s from the pool that they choose. Conspiracies, they are a lot of fun. And attributes are a character's four born-with traits: brains, brawn, coordination, and instinct. During character creation, all attributes begin at 1. Players have 12 points to spread between the four totals, remembering that no value may be greater than 6. An attribute's value denotes how many d12s are rolled when a test is undertaken. That is right, this is a d12-based system. The skills in the game, they are called competencies, and there are 12 in it, ranging from learning to sneaking. Each will have a rating from 0 to 3, and characters have 12 points to assign at character creation across all the competencies, remembering that none may be greater than 3. I'll explain how they affect tests in a bit. There are no classes in the game, though Redacted does use archetypes, each of which grants a +1 bonus to a specific competency. A journalist, for example, is granted +1 to communicate, while a soldier, well, they're given +1 to move. There are also 4 species from which players may choose, each of which grants a +1 bonus to a specific attribute and a choice between 2 species effects, basically special abilities. Humans are the most common species, but they're joined by the little gray men reticulans, androids, and Hopkinsville goblins, who appear to be made of metal and enjoy eating earth rocks. Keeping with the 1950s sci-fi movie feel, Redacted calls equipment props. If a player can make a good case for it A single prop may be used for a given test, adding a d12 to a roll. If a prop has acquired a problem, however, the threshold, that's the target number, of the test will also be increased from 1 all the way up to 3, given the number of problems the prop has acquired. Each prop costs a number of requisition points, and at start of play, each character has 8 RP to spend. Some of the props are the types of mundane things you'd expect in a 1950s-based reality, but others, they're quite cool. My personal favorite is the display paper, which can be stuck to a wall and created to receive UHF signals. And kids, ask your parents what a UHF signal is if you don't know what it is, or maybe your grandparents at this point. I don't know. I'm old. Get off my lawn and do not dare move because the signal is now coming in perfectly. Just hold your hand right like that. Just ask your parents. They'll tell you all about it. Now, weapons in this game are treated like any other prop, but they may also activate other effects in the game. Now, a final way for characters to stand out is through their special effects. Each character has 3 in addition to their species effects, which affect the way the character interacts with the world. A number of these effects are filmmaking turns, such as Fix It in Post, which is a nice touch, but my favorite is Percussive Maintenance, which allows a player to smack a prop in order to clear all of its problems for a scene at the cost of having it completely break once the scene has concluded. That is just amazing. Now, redacted characters advance by spending character points, and after each session, 4 questions are presented to the players, and every time they answer affirmative, they gain 1 CP. These points can be spent as soon as they're earned, or they may be banked in order to acquire more expensive upgrades, such as increasing an attribute by 1 or adding another conspiracy, so you get basically a reroll. Characters in Redacted, they've got this simple design, yes, but they can be built with this remarkable amount of variation that expands over time. I really enjoy it. As I mentioned, Redacted is a D12-based pool system with a base target number, called a threshold, of 11. The number of dice rolled for any test is based upon the attribute score being used for the test, but dice may be added to the pool through the use of props, applicable special effects, or by spending edits. More on those in a bit. A character may also be helped by another character in the party who has a narrative reason for doing so. And when this happens, the helping player calculates their own threshold, rolls a single d12, and narrates how a success aids the other character. Now, I am a big fan of any game which makes helping an actual action the player gets to both roll and narrate, and Redacted does a fine job with this. While the base threshold is 11, which is pretty high, this may be adjusted through a number of means. The first is based on the competencies of the character who is making the test, because for each level a character has in an applicable competency, the threshold is reduced by 1. Thresholds may also be reduced through the use of special effects, terrain or situational modifiers, and certain plot devices or kits which assist the characters. Thresholds, however, may also be increased. Situational modifiers may put a character at disadvantage. Characters and props will accumulate problems when they fail tests in the game, and each applicable problem increases the threshold by 1. Each attribute has 2 problems associated with it, and each problem can have an intensity rating of 0 to 3. If any problem ever hits intensity 3 during a mission, that character is removed from play until the problem can be resolved, if the players and director deem that the problem can even be resolved. Now, there may come a time when a test is so difficult that a single success alone isn't able to achieve the character's goals, and in this case, extra successes may be mandated by the GM, from 2, challenging, all the way up to 5, which is formidable. I find this to be an interesting aspect of the game because the difficulty is mostly out of the player's control, while the threshold is very much within the player's ability to manipulate. Now, having 2 axes on which success is gauged is a tad diabolical, but it also offers a boon for great rolls. Every success over a test's difficulty generates an edit for the attribute in play which the character keeps. Each attribute can actually have a maximum of 3 edits attached to it. A single edit can be spent to add a d12 to a dice pool. 2 edits can be spent to reduce a test difficulty by 1, and 3 edits grant a player a small bit of narrative control over the scene. They're rather powerful. Redacted's mechanics feel like a marriage between Modiphius's 2d12 system and Monty Cook's Cypher, and it works well. Combat is not central to Redacted's gameplay, but there may come times when the characters may have to engage in violence to fulfill their mission. Now, in Redacted, all combat checks are opposed tests. In this case, the reactive character, in combat that's the targeted character, makes a roll using an applicable attribute. The threshold for this test is modified just like all other tests, and when the roll is made, the number of successes sets the difficulty for the attacking character. If the reactive character has no successes, the active character automatically succeeds, but they still roll because successes, just like any other test, become edits. Armored characters add their armor's value to the difficulty of the opposed roll. For example, if a defending character is wearing an armor with a 2 value and rolls 1 success for the opposed roll, the attacking character will need 3 successes to harm the defender. Pretty fascinating. I like that setup. Now, melee attacks are a simple brawn plus survive test to adjudicate. Ranged attacks are a tad bit more complex. The targeted character uses move plus coordination to set the difficulty, while the attacker uses finesse and coordination to attack. The director determines if there are any situational modifiers. When a character is wounded by an attack, they receive 1 injured problem, which is handled like any other problem in the game. Weapons can, however, inflict different effects on the characters, and this is narrated in the equipment list. Redacted is a 122-page book, though the last numbered page is 110. The 12 pages after that function as appendices, beginning with a number of pre-generated characters, which demonstrate a variety of character builds, and the character I played, He Who Harvests Silicates, can be found in that list. It's really fun. There's also a decent index and an ad for Saucer Squadron, which is the tactical combat game from which Redacted was born. The front cover, well, that feels like a poster for a 1950s sci-fi thriller featuring flying saucers, giant insects, explosions, and a square-jawed protagonist being clung to by his presumed love interest. It looks like a dated product by design, and the cover artist knocked it out of the park. The rear cover also features a blurb for the game and some more retro-futuristic artwork. It's a fun-looking book. Redacted is laid out with a skeuomorphic design, which nowadays it feels dated. But again, this is by design. The outer margins are decorated to make the current page look like the top of a pile of old and worn documents, giving this book a weathered feel. Page headers are simple, with the book title centered on the page inside an irregular polygon. Page footers, they just display the page number in the outer page corner in an easy-to-read monospace font in orange color. Callouts, they're designed to look like pieces of paper torn from a small spiral-bound notebook. It's a really cool effect. Chapter title pages appear on the left of the spread, with a faux photograph in the middle of the page and the title in a distressed monospace font below. Second-level headings look like they were created by a typewriter in a heavy monospaced font, complete with section references which feel like they were ripped right out of the 1950s. So it's not just types of characters as the heading, it's 3.1. Types of characters as the heading. The only nod that the second level headings spring from the era of digital printing is their orange color, which makes them stand out. Third level headings use the same typewriter font and presented left justified on the page, black and bold. The body text is, I believe, a monospaced serif font, which preserves this typewriter feel to the book. There is functionally a fourth level heading in it, which appears in line with the paragraph it highlights, presented in a boldface and separated from the rest of the text by a colon. This typewriter feel to the book, it's broken in a few places, but the most noticeable is in the presence of italicized text. If it were keeping with the motif that the book was an artifact from the Redacted Universe in that time period, all italics would most likely have been underlined. But I don't think that would look as nice, so I'm not complaining. Now, tables are simple, big, and bold. Column and row headers utilize the second level font face and colors. Rows have an alternating color, which is another nod to modern design, which I appreciate, and each cell has a nice amount of padding. They are readable and simple. I am a fan. One of my favorite text features, however, is found in the lore section in Chapter 2, because throughout the chapter, there's actual redactions in the text. These never obscure the meaning of the material. You don't need to understand what's there in order to read the book, but they look authentic, and they also contain some really fun Easter eggs, because when the text is selected, copied, and then pasted from the PDF, all sorts of hidden messages appear, from nonsensical quips to actual jokes. It's little features like this which makes me such a huge fan of independent games like Redacted. The artwork is, and I do mean this as a compliment, goofy. It is glorious 1950s retro future camp through and through. And co-creator Aaron Palya makes some cameos in the images as well, which is a nice, wonderful touch. The color palette is muted with more of a pastel feel, but that's also an aspect of making it feel like a product of the game's 1950s setting. And because it's print on demand, it's also printed on non-glossy paper, which feels great in the hand and matches the design of the artwork perfectly. This book is clean, it is laid out well, and it is easy to read. As I've mentioned, I did get a chance to play Redacted on the channel. You can watch that stream right over there. And I gotta tell you, this is an interesting game, and once you understand how the characters receive problems instead of take damage, it's rather easy to grasp. Character designs are simple, and I am a sucker for both D12 and dice pool based systems. This one checks a lot of boxes for me. I also enjoyed how Redacted leaned into the 1950s sci-fi movie motif through its language and game tropes. Playing it felt like being in a movie. My character, he who harvests silicates, was an extraterrestrial goblin who ate rocks. He had huge green ears, green skin, and a huge nose, but because he was wearing a Russian fur hat over his ears, no one noticed. It is movie logic like that that makes the game so much fun. I also love my scene where I was dribbling sand into vodka to give it a creamy finish. If you're looking for a fun, the aliens are real sci-fi game filled with mid-20th century paranoia, and really, who isn't? You owe it to yourself to check out Redacted. And it's a good time to do so because the good folks behind Redacted are planning their first expansion for the game. They're hoping to have their 1950s source book, that's the cover of it right over there, out in Q3 of this year. And yeah, that's this summer. You can pick up the game at DriveThruRPG. A PDF hardcover combo is going to set you back $29.99. A softcover bundle is $5 less. Go check it out. I have read Dragonbane's Book of Magic and will be working on that review over the next week or so, but I have also read the player's book for Monte Cook Games' new version of Cypher, and I want to bring that to the channel first. I've also started reading Shadow West and Six Gun Doomsday, and those will be the next reviews on the channel after those two games. And thank you, John Harford, for the review copy of Shadow West. It's been really interesting to read so far. Free League was kind enough to send me a review copy of their box campaign for Coriolis the Great Dark. I'll be diving into that over the next couple of weeks as well. I'll also try to include a live stream first look because, well, it's pretty amazing. And finally, I've got some live streams coming up with some amazing folks, and I'll be announcing those as soon as I get them locked down. As always, folks, I am looking forward to bringing all of this to you. And until we see each other again, happy playing, everyone.